Okay, so I think we are live. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Talk Sober Live. Today, what Terry and I are going to be doing is talking about alcohol and the effects on the family. How does it affect the family? How does it affect our relationships? How does it affect our life? Everything like that. And I think it's a big issue because a lot of people don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the alcoholic. They don't understand how they operate. They don't understand how they think. They don't understand how alcohol could take over someone's mind, right? And they think that the alcoholic is just like some like weak-willed person who just can't stop drinking. And to a lot of the family, they're like, "What the hell? Why don't you just stop drinking and stop being an ass, and life will be good."
Exactly.
But as Terry and I found out, it's not always as easy as that. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with this, you have a chemical that is literally changing the way that your brain thinks. And I think I have the wrong banner up on top. Let me see if I can fix that banner. I know I have my sober ones here. Hold on one second. See, this is what happens when I get no sleep. So let's go ahead and see if we can bring in an image slideshow. Is this the right one? Let me see. Hold on. Bear with me one second. I will get this fixed. And Terry, if you want to interject here real quick and talk about your thoughts on the alcoholic in the family, I will fix our button at the top there.
Absolutely. For me, when I was in my alcoholism, um, I thought that it didn't really affect my family much at all because I moved down to California from Washington State, and my family's all up there, and I thought it had no effect on them whatsoever. And as I found out when I got sober, it had quite a big effect on them. And also it did affect obviously my marriage part of my family because my wife divorced me mainly because of my alcoholism and my lying that came along with the alcoholism. So it affects everybody, and it's amazing because a lot of times the family will start to show traits that the alcoholic is showing from their disease. It's amazing how this disease can just touch everybody in an alcoholic's life. It's a dangerous thing.
It is, yeah. And for me, I look at it and it's like I I hated the person that I became, and I really didn't like my life when I was drinking because it took over everything, and I wasn't able to function. I wasn't able to uh, do the things I normally did, and like you said, you had a marriage that ended just mostly because of alcohol. Um, and we look at that and we're like, okay, how do we kind of look at this and say, okay, are we having a big issue, or is it the other people, right? Am I the one that's right? Is everyone else wrong? Or is it something deeper? Is it something that is affecting me even more than I actually realize? And if you guys have anything to interject as well in the comments, go ahead and type in, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is what I'm dealing with my alcoholism and my family and everything like that. And we got the slide thing working, so I think we're good there. And we got our disclaimer up there. But yeah, like for me, I look at it, and when I was active in my drinking, it affected my family, and I knew it affected my family and my kids and wife and everything like that. Not so much my distant family or my family that didn't live with us, but affected them, here in the house I was in. And for me, even though it could have been a lot worse, even though it could have been, a lot more, um, for me, I always prided myself on the fact that, hey, you know what, I at least I'm an okay dad. Like that was like the thing. And when that started to go away, it really was a blow to me because I was like, okay, well, if I can't even do that, then what's the deal, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things that also comes up is alcoholism in the family. Now, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. We got disclaimers that say we're not doctors. We don't know anything. We just know what kind of worked for us, and hopefully that'll help you. But for me, I come from a long line of alcoholism. My great grandpa was an alcoholic. He was actually a bootlegger in Alabama. He was kicked out of Alabama for bootlegging, and alcoholic for many years. And then one time he just quit. In his older years, um, my grandpa, not his son, it was his son-in-law, helped him get sober, and it wasn't like a big thing or anything. It was just like, hey, I'm going to kick your ass every day unless you get sober, and apparently that worked. Um, But his daughter, my grandmother, was alcoholic for many years. I remember growing up with her, just drunk all the time, and I didn't know because I was a kid. It was just, hey, grandma's funny, man. You know, she cracks us up. But I didn't realize it until I was a teenager, and we got a call that she had come home from a bar one night and she slipped and hit her head on a curb or a sprinkler or something. And I remember we went to the hospital and like half of her head was just gone. You know, and it was the sprinkler's fault. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't her fault that she couldn't stand up. You know, um, and I remember that, and I believe she's been sober ever since. She's like 90 something now. But I come from a long line of that, and we look at how it affects the family. I look at how it affected my dad. You know, he's got a lot of issues from the alcoholism in his life. He's got he never. I don't think he was ever an alcoholic, but he has issues with other stuff. And we look at it, and it's like, how does this affect our life? How does this affect the people around us? And what do we do about it? Right. So if you're tuning in, and I know I used different keywords on this one, if you're tuning in and you're looking at this and you're like, okay, well, I have a family member who drinks too much, or I think they drink too much. What would you do? Like, if we could go back to that, because I know for me, Terry, I was, I'd get mad. Like, if you told me I had a drinking problem, I'd be like, no, I don't have a drinking problem. My problem is I don't have enough to drink. And I would always look at it that way, and I'd be like, okay, when someone would kind of bring it to my attention, is that enough? Have you had too many? Um, so what would you look at for that? Like, how would you look at talking to someone that had a problem?
Well, I guess the important thing is to point out, just have them figure out what they've been doing, what alcohol has been doing to them. A lot of times, like for me, I was much the same way in my denial as you were. I just said that I didn't have an alcohol problem,
Hmm.
and I just ended up hiding it. So people outside of my close knit life, they didn't know. But
Hmm.
my wife, she started to suspect, and I hid it from her as well. And I would always deny that. She'd ask me, have you had a drink today?" And before I got home from work, and I'd had like 8 or 9, and
Hmm.
I just say no. I mean, how can you hide that? You can't hide that.
Yeah,
But
totally.
I just continued to deny it, and it's hard to get through the denial that someone may have. I mean,
Hmm.
it's really just a matter of trying to talk to them and try to point out where alcohol has had effects, negative effects in their lives.
Hmm.
It's a difficult thing to step over there, that denial.
Yeah, and we look at it, and a lot of times we kind of look at ourselves. Like, I remember I looked at myself, and I wasn't really like, I cared about my family and the effects on the family, but it was more about like how I felt about myself in those responses, right? So I look at it, and alcohol is kind of funny because it takes away like the higher evolved brain, if you will,
Yeah.
and it puts it at a baseline, right? It puts it at a baseline of, I got to protect me, everything's about me, all I care about is me, and we look at that, and it's like, okay, well, how is this working for you? And we look at effects on the family, and we look at effects on kids. We look at effects on parents. Um, Spouses is a big one, um, and we look at it like, okay, well, what can they do? What can they look at? What are they going through? Right? And for me, it's kind of difficult because I've never really been on that side of the coin. But I look at like how my wife dealt with it and everything, and it had to be hard. It had to be difficult because it's like, here's this person who is willfully incapacitated, like they're willfully beating the hell out of themselves every day,
Right.
like just kick it. Like, it's like you're going in the boxing ring and you got one of them friggin' angry kangaroos, and they're just kicking your ass, and you're paying them to do it. And from the outside, it's like, okay. From the outside, my kids are like, okay, well, why does Dad go get his ass kicked by the kangaroo? What the hell's the matter with him? Why is he doing that? And then my wife would be like, well, what the hell's the matter with you? Why are you going and getting your ass kicked by this kangaroo? And we don't see it, right? We don't see it because we're sitting here and we have trained ourselves to believe that, hey, you know what? Alcohol is what's keeping us alive. That's the only thing that's keeping us normal. And for me, sometimes today I still get anxious or I get jumpy or jittery or whatever in certain situations. And I remember, hey, you know what? That used to help at a point, and your mind will look at that, and your family doesn't see that. They don't see, hey, you know what? He's using this as like maybe a coping mechanism, or he's using this for whatever. They just see everything's hitting the fan, and that's what happens. Is everything does hit the fan because alcohol wasn't meant to be like a coping mechanism. It's not meant to be, uh, you know, something used for mental issues or whatever. It exacerbates them. It makes them worse.
Exactly.
Um, and that's really what happened with me was my mind started to deteriorate. I couldn't be there for the ones I loved. I I had no sense of time. Right? There's no sense of time. It was like up at 4 a.m., got to drink. Up at 2 a.m., got to drink. Never sleep, got to drink. Got to work, got to do this. And it was like a match made in hell where everything just started imploding. My mind started going, which could be from the sleep, probably also from the alcohol. And we look at it and it's like, this guy's literally going insane. And you look at the family and you look at the hurt that it could cause them just watching someone go through that. Because, again, they don't understand it, right? It's kind of like
Right.
um, if you have people in a controlled environment. Let's say we have people in like a concentration camp or something, right? Those people get each other, right? They're like, we went through this. Our mind was warped by this stuff. We didn't have food. We went through this terrible, terrible experience which no human should ever go through, and we get each other. Like if I go to them, I'm like, I don't know what it's like. I could sit here and be like, if I was in that, I'd be roughing people up and kicking some butt and going under the fence or whatever I think I might do. But when you're in that situation, what happens is your mind is controlled by the situation, right? So you no longer can think like you will think right now. Now, alcohol does the same thing. Like you could say, okay, I'm going to do this in my family, I'm going to do that, I'm going to be this type of person, I'm going to think this way. But what happens is now, when you add the alcohol, you are actually being controlled by that, and your thought process is now warped by the bubble you've created, like the concentration camp people. And the other people outside don't get it. They don't understand that that's what's going on. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, it's a difficult thing. Trying to get somebody to accept the fact that they're an alcoholic and that they need some help
Mm-hmm.
to get over the alcoholism. It's huge. I mean, I see people, I talk to people on a daily basis, some that have relapsed with their alcoholism, 10, 15 times. And
Mm-hmm.
they've gone to one person in particular, they've gone to rehab 15 times. I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's a
And
lot.
and
Yeah.
you're just and I understand this disease. I understand that that it's a powerful disease, and people relapse. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, okay, I relapsed once, and then then I figured it out, and now I'm able to stay sober right now. And me understanding this, I don't understand why they keep on relapsing. So
Yeah.
and I understand this now. The family they don't understand this at all. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was struggling, I had friends that were like, "Well, why don't you just quit?" And
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, you're right, and I'd quit for half a day at the most. It
Mm-hmm.
just didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's really trying to figure out a way to convince the alcoholic that they do need the help and that they are alcoholic. It's that first step, and it's
Yeah.
a really difficult hurdle to get over. I wish there was an easy answer, but it's really just having them having them figure it out and on their own. You can do. I've seen families do many things like take the keys away so they can't go get alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
freeze their bank accounts, tell them maybe a wife will cut off sex or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
many different ways that they try to like almost coerce the person into sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a lot of people they get into legal trouble, and the judge is like, "Well, you have to go to AA, and you got to get this 3 times a week. I need a signature."
Mm-hmm.
And if the alcoholic wants to keep drinking, or actually, it's not if they want to keep drinking. It's if they don't want the help and don't want to do what it takes to get sober. It's not going to happen. They're going to figure out a way.
Yeah, it's interesting because one, I remember when I first was getting sober or trying to, I had this lady I was talking to who was a counselor, and she was like, let me make sure our stream is still working. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
And she was like, you're a control freak. And for me, that was like an insult because I was like, me, a control freak? What are you talking about? No, everyone else is a control freak. I'm little meek and mild, nice guy. Um, and that was kind of the idea. And sorry about the screen, we're having some issues here. But that was kind of the idea was, I'm a control freak, and we don't realize that oftentimes alcohol can be the control in a relationship with a family, because it's like, okay, I got to the point where my kids were like, hey, don't have that. My wife was like taking them away or hiding them or whatever, and it became kind of a game in my mind of like, find the drink and hide the drink, and how much can you get away with. And sometimes it even became more about that than it actually became about the alcohol. But it was always about the alcohol. My mind just diluted it. But we look at that and we're like, okay, is that what's going on here, right? How do we approach someone gently? And Naomi's listening in. She said she's on day 16 sober after a EMS ride and stay in the ICU. That was my second relapse. And we look at that, and congratulations on your 16 days. And I hope it turns into 16 years and 50 years or whatever it is. Because this doesn't have to own us anymore. This doesn't have to be the way it is. We don't have to relapse. In a lot of culture, people think, oh, well, they relapse. That's what they do. And I remember when Terry was in rehab with me, there was a lot of people there who were, on their second, third, fourth rehab. And we look at it like that guy who went to rehab 15 times. I mean, he spent a year and 2 months in rehab.
Yeah.
Like that's a long time to not get it. And when we look at that, it's like, okay, here's the family trying to get us to do something. And I know there's like intervention people, and I don't know. I haven't studied enough about intervention to know kind of how it works, but I think intervention's more for the guy who's like doesn't think he has a problem. Um, and some people do. They do realize it. Like if you're watching this video, you probably realize that you have a problem. I realized I had a problem. It was difficult to admit. But for me, the difficult part was admitting that I needed like some kind of outside help. Because our culture in America and in a lot of Western cultures, we pride ourselves on self help, like pull yourself up by the bootstraps, which, by the way, does not work. That phrase is completely taken out of context. If you sit there on the ground and you try to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you're just going to be sitting on your ass all day. It's not going to work. But our culture prides itself on that. We go to things that are like, you just need more motivation, you need more self will. And the problem is alcohol depletes your self will.
Exactly.
So what are you going to get? And that's what people don't get. The family oftentimes does not get this. And I wish, and maybe it's something me and Terry can help bring awareness to, is understanding what is going on. A drug addict isn't just someone out there that goes and gets his fix because he needs a fix. Okay, that is part of it. An alcoholic isn't just out there drinking because he feels like he needs a drink, right? It's not that. It's not like a guy who's gone awry and, he just likes his drink and whatever. Okay, there are people out there that might be completely fine and other people think they have a problem. It's not up to me to decide. But we also have to look at it and say, well, what's going on in the mind? Because with me, I had to drink. Like my body felt like I had to. And my mind was warped enough to where I thought I needed it to live. And my mind was warped in this shell of thinking. Like my grandma, we look at her and we always laugh because she has these crazy ideas. She's like, oh, I'm the Indian princess of whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And she'd write books and have all this weird thoughts. And, that's what alcohol does to your brain. It makes you think things that aren't real are real. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Alcoholism definitely distorts your reality. And
Mm-hmm.
Naomi, I really relate to what you just said there. Being on day 16 after an EMS ride. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
quite take an EMS ride. I got to the hospital myself, but same thing. I was in the ICU for a while, and you can get over it. It's just you. For me, what I had to do was I just had to give up any fighting and any of my reservations as to what I needed to do to get sober. I just did everything I possibly could. The
Mm-hmm.
hospital offered me classes, and I did that. I did AA. I did everything I possibly could. And what people that are sober or doctors told me to do, I did it. And that's how I've gotten 3.5 years now. I mean, it's helped a lot. And I lost the name there because the it scrolled a little further, but
Naomi, was it? Was it Naomi?
Requiem Sama,
Mm-hmm.
22 days sober. That's awesome. And being in Japan where drinking's glorified, that's tough, man. It's a difficult thing. Um, I don't know if it would work in Japan or not, but I'm in the catering industry and I do a lot of entertaining. Alcohol is always involved, and I have a special cocktail. It's just a simple little tool I use, and it's usually just a soda water with cranberry juice. I mean, but it works. And my other friends, they don't care if there's alcohol in it or not. And when I'm catering, the bartenders come up to me and they say, "What do you want to drink?" And they expect me to order a martini or something. I'm like, "Soda water with cranberry," and they don't care. It's cool.
Yep.
And maybe that's something you can try using.
Well, and a lot of times we look at it because for me, there was two things. I looked at one, the stigma of peer pressure and people around you and culture and everything, and I realized a lot of it was in my own head. Like no one really said that. No one was like, "Hey, come on, buddy, you gotta, pound them or whatever." And no one was really thinking that, and no one really cared. And actually, I have found that people actually appreciate the fact that I'm like, "Hey, you know what? I'm sober." Last week when I went to the marketing meeting, the lady was like, "Hey, what are you drinking?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna have a tonic water," which, by the way, gives you kind of a weird taste if you like that kind of thing, because sometimes we like weird tasting stuff as alcoholics. And she didn't even charge me for them. I had like 6 or 7 of them. But another thing that I look at is the hill. And what I mean by the hill is like we look at sobriety and we look at it as how am I going to stay sober the rest of my life? I mean, if you guys on listening now were to answer that, like it seems like a huge thing. Like Naomi's here and she's got 16 days. She had medical issues, and if you ever have medical issues, go to the doctor. Like be like me, where you're like a freak out and you go to the doctor a little too much, because you always want to be safe, right? You always want to be safe, and you never know what's wrong. And
Absolutely.
you know, we don't know. We might think we will, but when you're dealing with alcohol, it screws you up. Like it's literally poison, and it's not good for you. And you could read about it, and it's just not good. Um, so always go to a doctor. But another thing, like she's looking at that, and she's like, I'm 16 days sober. How am I gonna go a year? I'm on my second relapse. How am I gonna go a year? I mean, how am I gonna go 20 years? Like I don't see myself with the grandkids and my, tonic water like Marcus has. I don't see that. Like, what about weddings? What about this? What about that? And what we do is we try to look at our life in like this linear thing. And it's like, okay, here it is. Here it is all laid out. Instead of looking at, well, I'm just not going to drink today. Okay. It's like, I remember James used to tell us, he's like, you know what? Tomorrow, you can go out and get all screwed up. But today, you're going to stay sober. Just
Yep.
keep saying that, right?
Yeah.
And tomorrow's never going to come. And what you're going to do is you're going to start to train your brain to live a new way. And I didn't realize, like, when I got sober or was thinking about getting sober or needed to get sober, I thought, yay, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be sober. I'm going to be more productive in business. And that was kind of it. And, it's going to suck because I can't drink. Like that was my thinking. It's going to suck, but I'll be more productive. So there'll be some good things, and I won't be falling over. Good, whatever. I didn't realize that there was like this hidden benefit of being sober, which actually completely changes your life. Right? I didn't realize that getting sober didn't just mean not drinking, but it actually meant my entire thought process would shift. Like
Right.
night and day. I mean, from like political views to spiritual views to everything changed. And it changed in a way where I am now able to accept what I believe without anything else, right? I used to be like, okay, well, I believe this, but that's wrong because of what the church taught me years ago.
Right.
or I think this, but that's wrong because of what this person says. What happened was it just flipped my mindset, and the alcohol thing went along with it, where it's like, hey, you know what? You can drink if you want, and that's cool. I don't need to anymore. Right? It's
Right.
not that I can't. I just don't need to or want to. And it's interesting because we look at that, and a lot of you guys listening might be like, well, how does that work? Like, I have to survive on it today. How am I going to get to that? Um, and when we look at that, the family doesn't understand that part. I don't think anyone can really understand an alcoholic unless they've been an alcoholic,
Right.
because it's you have to experience it. You have to know what it's like to try to fix yourself with a mind that's warped by what you're doing to it. Right? So it's like I'm completely warped by what my mind is doing to this, and it's difficult.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why you even see it in rehab facilities. It's funny you were talking about the rehab we went to, and the director of the rehab had gone through rehab 13 times,
Mm-hmm.
and he was one of the best people there. I could relate to him so much because he'd been there, he'd done that.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, the doctors are very, very educated. They don't know what it's like to be an alcoholic firsthand, unless
Mm-hmm.
they were one. But they've gone through extensive teaching, and they've probably been taught by alcoholics a lot as well, as
Yeah.
their medical teachings have given them. But yeah, it's interesting that really the alcoholic is that we understand each other,
Yeah.
and we tend not to judge as much when we're talking to another one when they tell us these crazy, stupid stories that they've done in
Mm-hmm.
their in the midst of their alcoholism, and we're like, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
I can one up you on that one, things like that.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's interesting because we look at that. Hold on one second. I think someone's trying to get a hold of me, but let me just put it. Yeah, it's interesting because we look at it, and we don't understand, or they don't understand. Family doesn't usually understand, and we have to give them leeway for that. Like, I don't want them to understand. I don't want them to have to go through what I went through so they can understand me. It's not about that. I
Right.
want them to, maybe you can tell them, hey, this is what I'm going through. And one of the cool things is like really be honest about it with yourself and with other people,
Hmm.
because we have this thing in our culture where we got to be strong and we got to take the bull by the horns and wrangle the calf and whatever. And it's like it's not really like that. Like no bell went off when I got sober. There wasn't like a party that was like, yay, Marcus is sober, or hey, look at that guy, he quit. What a loser. That didn't happen. And what we have to realize is what it's doing to us, right? So I want everyone right now think about what it's doing to you, think about what it's doing to your family, and ask yourself, is this what you want? Is this what you want for your life? And I want you also to realize that all the damage and all the stuff that's happened, right? It
Right.
can change. It can change. Some things, I mean, maybe some of you guys have some things that can't be forgiven by some people, and that's okay. That's sometimes what happens. But the most important thing is to be able to forgive yourself and be able to live and say, today I'm going to be sober because I realize that my mind in that situation was different, and we have to look at it because like the reason I bring up the what was it, the concentration camp, is because it's something that warps your mind. And they did an experiment years ago you can read about and watch about called the Sanford Prison Experiment. And in the Sanford Prison Experiment, what they did was they took a bunch of people and they were like, we're gonna act like we're prisoners. Okay, here's some prisoners. We're gonna go into prison. Here's some guards. We're gonna go into guard. And all these people knew that it was an experiment. Everyone knew it was an experiment. But what happened over time was they started to look at it, and people started to act their roles. Right, so the people who were the prisoners started like beating the hell out of each other and being buttheads and whatever.
Right.
Not that all prisoners are like that. I don't know what they're like, but in this experiment, that's what happened. And the guards started like beating the prisoners, and this was an experiment, right? We look at it, and it's a total experiment. Like they knew we are acting, This is not real. We're not here for life. This is not real. But they actually started to do these things. And it would get out of hand. Like they had to break it up because they're like, dude, you can't beat this guy to a pulp, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And, it's not about this. But it started to change the way their minds work and it made them forget it's fake. It's not real. Right? And in life, the same thing happens. And especially with alcohol, we don't realize that our mind is being warped by this. Right? You're like that guy, and I got to be like, dude, snap out of it. It's an experiment. It's not real. Um, and with alcohol, we look at it and it's like the things in your mind, the things that you're believing right now that say, I can't quit, I don't want to quit, I'm this, it's too far gone, nothing's going to help me, I can't see myself. All of that, that's all thought processes created by alcohol. That's all it is. The fastest, as fast as you got into trouble, you can get out. Actually, faster, right? You can say, now I'm just going to change, and it'll start to change right now, and you just follow through every single day. Now, I know, like when Terry got sober, he started riding his bike, and I didn't see Terry for what, like 6 months till like 6 months after. And when I saw him 6 months after, I was like, oh my God, this guy looks 30 years younger. He's slimmer.
Yeah.
He looked great. I was like, what the heck, man? This is not the Terry that where's the other Terry? Okay. Bring him out. Bring out your little, your older brother.
Yeah.
Um, and now that didn't happen overnight. Like you didn't like get sober, hop on a bike and yay, I'm skinny and I look great. Right. It took,
Absolutely.
it took a while.
It
Right.
does.
So,
And that's also with the family as well as you get sober and then all of a sudden you're sober and you want everybody to celebrate.
mhm,
And the problem is the alcoholism's caused so many problems. I mean, the family has trust issues and many other things, and they have resentment against you, and there's all sorts of issues that are still there. And
mhm,
really, getting sober just it brings you back up to a normal person level.
mhm,
And like when I got sober, I'm getting out of there going, I'm now the best person in the world because I'm sober. No, I'm just back to normal. And
yeah.
so there's a lot to work through, and these problems that may have happened. I mean, some of the problems, as you said, never go away,
Mhm,
and or they just have to be worked on. For me, physically, yeah, I started riding my bicycle. My first bike ride was really short. And actually, I just saw one of those Facebooks 3 years ago today, and I posted I did a 101
Be
mile
back
bike
in one
ride
second.
8 months after I was in the hospital in the ICU, but it was a slow process. I didn't get that all right away, and that's the same thing with the family. Um, Honestly, you it's your actions that are going to show. You can talk all you want, and that may help a little, but really it's what you do in a positive direction with the family, being there, not being overly zealous, but just doing the right thing and doing what a husband or a wife or a brother or sister does in a normal, non-alcoholic way. And that seems to be it just takes time to get through this stuff. And where'd you go? Anyways, so yeah, the family is definitely very affected by the alcoholic, and getting over that, it just takes time and time and just doing the right thing every day. Um, yeah. So what do you? Oh, Marcus is gone.
I'm
So
back now.
okay. So yeah, the family interrelationships are they take time to heal. They really do, and sometimes it happens quick, sometimes it happens slowly, and same with the friends. I've actually lost a lot of friends getting sober. Most of them that I really don't. It's not really lost. It's just I'm not in contact with them. But I look back on it, and those are friends that I was drinking with.
Yeah.
And really, that's all we had in common is that we were drinking with it. I'm not saying they're alcoholics; they're fine. I'm the alcoholic,
Hmm.
and I just can't go hanging out with them drinking and watch them drink. So
Yeah.
it's just part of what I do to stay sober. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because things can get better for you. They can get better for your family, but it's going to start with one little thing. Like Naomi says, how long before you start feeling better? I drank like 28 beers a day or whatever she says, and we look at that and how long is it going to take your mind and body to recuperate? For me, I was in rehab when I got sober, so it was a little bit different because I didn't have like the day to day stresses. I wasn't trying to like function normally. I was just getting by, and they knew what to feed us, which helped as well. But normality, you're going to find that normality never existed. Like feeling normal never existed. I used to think, oh well, feeling normal, feeling this, feeling that, but I didn't realize that all my life I had been kind of like predisposed to thinking things were a certain way, feeling a certain way, living a certain way. Then I got sober and I was like, well, everything's kind of out the window because I can't manage my life, right? And then I came to and I was like, well, normal is now just whatever's okay. And a lot of times we look at it, and I would venture to say that you probably make things like if you're like me, I make things worse than they are. Like when I have a headache, I sit there and I like clench my face and I'm like, I got a headache. Damn it, I got a headache. And I make this headache this big thing. But if I just sit back and relax, it'll end up going away. And what we fight usually gets worse. If you're fighting your alcoholism, it's probably going to be a big battle because you're fighting. But the cool thing is you don't have to fight anymore. Like you don't have to. Like for me, alcohol won. Well, oh, you got beat by alcohol? Yeah, it's a chemical, mind-altering substance that altered my mind. Yeah, okay, I got beat. It's like, yeah, it's silly the way that we look at things, and we have to really look at it and say, you know what? I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do because I need to be okay. I'm just going to do what I need to do. I want my family to be okay. I look at the effects it has on them, and I'm just going to be okay. And it's like my uncle said one time we were trying to move this table, and my dad was like, "You need to strap it down," and my uncle's like, "No, you don't." And the table flew out of the car and bashed all over the place. My uncle's a big guy, and when he gets mad, everyone laughs because it's funny, but you don't want to be the one he's mad at. And he was like, everyone finds something to do. I'm doing this because everyone was like, oh, we're going to put this together. We got to get it out of the road. We got to put it in. He's like, just everyone go do something because this is what I'm doing. And that's how you have to be with your alcoholism. It's like everything else find something to do because what I'm doing is I'm focusing on being sober. And I'm focusing on a new life and I'm focusing on chilling out. And for someone like Naomi, take some time for yourself, relax. Realize, hey, you've been hard on yourself for a long time with this chemical or whatever, and it's time to just chill and relax, and everything's going to be okay as long as you just take it day by day, take the stress out. She says she's got a lot of anxiety. I deal with a lot of anxiety. Sometimes it's worse than other days. After I stopped drinking, it was really, really bad because what happens is you get the alcohol that dampens the anxiety, and your base level of anxiety is like way high because you've been damping it down, right? And then when you stop drinking, it's way up here and you don't have your coping mechanism, so it's really high. But the key is to remember that anxiety is not really real. It's just a feeling in the body. It's like something from years ago in caveman days where it was like, hey, a tiger, get anxious so you can run. But now there's no tiger, so we're like, hey, someone's looking at me and get anxious or whatnot. But if we remember, hey, you know what, it's going to be okay right now, that's the key. What do you think about that?
I agree completely. I wanted to answer Naomi there. She was asking how long before you start feeling better,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, 28 beers a day. That's a good amount. Yeah, I was probably about there. I just didn't drink beer; it was hard alcohol. But
Yeah.
it takes a while. That's why rehabs are usually 30 days at the least.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on day 16. That's about where I started to feel better. But first of all, if you're feeling real bad, you need to go to a doctor. because you want to make sure things aren't dangerous. But other than that, I started to that's about when I started to feel better. But the hard part is I didn't start feeling better like one day I was feeling like crap and the next day I was feeling great. It was slow. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very slow process, and it actually took months to get to where I was feeling somewhat normal. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as that alcohol withdrawal goes, it can take a while. And the some people, for me, the cravings went away right away. But I know many people that have cravings a couple years down the road. And me, 3.5 years sober, I still like. I remember going to a baseball game and I saw a guy with a nice cold beer, and I was like, "Dang, that looks so good," you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I had a little. I still have those little cravings here and there, but
Mm-hmm.
it does take a little while to start to feel better. And really, the one of the most important things is that you just don't isolate. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
get out there. The hospital, I'm sure, offers some sort of a program for people that just came out. The hospital that you were in, I'm sure, offers that. And there's meetings all over the place. But it's important to talk to other people that have been through the same thing. It's going to help it'll make you think about it, but at the same time, it'll help take your mind off of the suffering that you might be going through.
Yeah. And, it's interesting too because it doesn't have to be as difficult and you don't have to look at it like a terrible thing. So, like, she's looking at it and she's like, okay, well, why am I not feeling better yet? And it's like, well, for years you've been basically living on this substance and yeah, your body's going to be like, what the hell? And it's going to want to reject it and you're going to like, it's like coming out of a cave, you come out of the cave and everything kind of hurts at the beginning and you're like, hey, when am I going to feel better? And eventually you'll adjust. The key is just get used to things and start to relax and give yourself mellow circumstances. If you have anxiety, probably not best to like go on a speaking tour. It's like, okay, probably don't want to do that or um, something. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, again, following with the theme of the family, we want to start to understand the family and understand that if you have a problem, deal with it, right? Your family's not like harping on you because they want to take away your alcohol. Well, I mean, they probably do because it needs to be taken away. But you have to look at it from their perspective, and you're basically ruining your life by your own hand willfully.
Right.
You're like, okay, I feel good, and for some reason I go drink, and now I feel bad, so I'm going to drink more, and then I'm just in the gutter or whatever, metaphorically or physically. Um, and what do I do? And your family's like, man, why does he keep doing that? It's like a guy who's just slapping himself in the face. And it's like, why do you keep doing that? Well, I like it. You sure? You sure you like it? It doesn't seem like you like it. I mean, your face is all messed up and, you say ouch every time. And it's kind of like that. And, for the most part, if your family's trying to get you to stop, they probably love you.
Yeah.
They probably want you to do better. Like my wife loved me. Now she has a way of talking to me that back then didn't seem like it. And it's like, I'm going to take your damn alcohol away, fool or whatever. And she was just trying what she could try because she didn't understand what was going on.
That's right.
So don't fault the people that don't understand what's going on. It's your job to understand what's going on with you. It's your job.
Exactly.
Figure it out. And here's what's going on with you. Your mind is altered by a chemical. So like you're thinking and you're trying to get sober and you're trying to do these things and maybe it's not working or maybe it is working, but that's the thinking that was caused by alcohol. It's kind of like in the Back to the Future movie, which I use this example a lot. And he's like, they go back and they're in the alternate 1985 where Biff is president. Kind of interesting, right? Kind of resembles today, but and that character was actually made after our current president. But at any rate, we look at it and we're like, okay, Biff's the guy. The town's all ruined. Everything's crazy, and he's like, well, why don't we just go back to the future and take the book away from Biff so that he can't cause this alternate thing? And the doctor says, hey, look, you know what? If you travel in the future from this fake 1985, you're going to go to the fake 2020 or whatever. So you're just going to go, right? So you got to go back. And it's the same kind of thing. It's like if you try to get better from this fake alternate mind that has been created by alcohol, you're trying to use that line of thinking. You need something outside of it to help. That's why like rehabs and things help, because it's outside. It's someone say, look, this is what's going on. And you're like, well, no, I think it's this way. And I got it all figured out. And it's like, you don't got nothing figured out because you can't stop.
Hmm.
So there you go. Hopefully that helps, if that made sense. If you have anything to add, go for it.
Well, not to that particular story, but
Back to the,
that's
how do
okay.
we get there?
That's a good analogy.
I
But
do like that one. If they haven't seen the movie, though, it's like,
oh yeah, that's true. It's an old movie too.
yeah, it is. Good movie.
A lot of family that when an alcoholic starts to starts their symptoms of alcoholism start to show through. A lot of times, the family will kind of get to this reactive type phase to or where they're just trying to minimize. They may try to minimize what's going on, or they're just trying to kind of adapt their behavior and try to adapt the alcoholic's behavior in a way that may get them to get over their disease, not thinking that this is an illness and that it's going to continue to progress.
Mm-hmm.
They may also try to deny that they have a problem, just like the alcoholic is. But if a person is developing an addiction, it's going to get worse, and that's just how it goes. And who knows where it's going to stop, but that's what the family they usually just kind of react that first while. It may be years, it may just be months or whatever, but they tend to answer problems in that way, or they may bail the person out of jail or something from getting a DUI or things like that. And that's kind of a hurdle that people have to try to get over, is instead of reacting to what the alcoholic is doing, is trying to be proactive somehow and try. I mean, maybe it means the person needs to leave the home or something like that, go to a rehab or something like that, or just start living your life normally, and maybe the alcoholic is going to start to realize where they're just kind of falling away. But it's really hard for when you're real reactive towards an alcoholic. They're just gonna fight back or deny or whatever. That's usually what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, every once in a while, they may just accept it and say, "Okay, I'll go to rehab," and that's great. But a lot of times, they're just gonna fight back, and that's the hardest hump with the family, is trying to figure out how to get them help. But there are programs that you can and stuff on the internet that you can look up and figure out how to get through to these people.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the thing, is arm yourself with education and know what's going on.
yep,
And know that when you battle someone who has an alcoholic problem, you're not battling the person, you're battling the problem,
right.
right? And it's interesting because it's like there's another movie. Um, Years ago, we watched The Green Mile, and at the end of The Green Mile, this is like one insignificant scene. Um, One of the prison guards has a wife, and she has an illness, right? And this is back in the day when everyone was proper, and the wife's, the women didn't use bad language or whatever. And they go there, and she's just like yelling at everyone. She's cursing and everything. And they realize, hey, this is like a thing in her brain that's causing this. It's not my wife doing this. It's this thing causing it, right? It's like if you have like a light, they've done tests with lights where they put like a little light electrode thingamajigger, and they do something on your brain, and it'll make you feel a certain way. It'll make you do something. And that's what we have to realize, is that a person induced by alcohol is not the same person that wasn't induced by alcohol, right? I'm
Right.
a different person now. If I drink, who knows what I'm going to be? Put
Yeah.
me in a concentration camp, who knows what I'm going to be? Put the little electrodes, who knows what's going to happen? I have no
Right.
idea. I could sit here and say, I'm strong in my faith, I'm strong in my belief, I'm strong in this, I'm never going to pick up a drink again. But you start tweaking with the things in the brain, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
And it's important to realize, because, one, that could be a terrible thing. Like, you could look at that and be like, well, shit, we don't have control over anything. Or you could look at it and be like, shit, we don't have control over anything, therefore I'm free. And if you use it as freedom, it's like, hey, you know what? We're free. We do what we need to do. We don't use it as an excuse, right? We're not like, oh, well, my brain made me do it. Okay, that's stupid. You look at it and say, hey, I'm free and I can be the best version of me possible and I don't have to have a drink. And yeah, obviously, when I did have a drink, I'm going to act like a drunk, right? That's why they call them that, because a drinker acts drunk and does crazy things, right? And we have to look at that and give ourselves some latitude and be like, hey, you know what? Doesn't excuse the things I did, but hey, maybe I can learn to live a new way. Maybe I can learn that I wouldn't be that person if I didn't have that. And maybe it's time to not be that person. Maybe it's time to take what's been causing all this pain, all this anguish to you, to your family, to everyone, and say, wow, my life is controlled by drinks.
Yeah.
Do I really want that? Do I want to be a lab rat to king alcohol? Is that what
Right.
I want to be? Right? Oh, well, Marcus, you don't understand. The people at the football game, really? You're going to, like, talk about people at the football game who really don't give a rip? Most of the time, your friends that you think care about you being drunk are too drunk to realize you're even there. Right? Oh, what happened last night, man? Well, I didn't drink, but you acted like an idiot. It's actually a lot more entertaining to be the sober one at those events because you're like, wow, okay. But look at it for what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. Alcohol it's a poison that's going to affect your body and it's going to affect your mind. Some people can have it moderately and whatever, that's their prerogative. I don't need to. I don't miss it. I do not miss alcohol. I'm like, take it or leave it, right? Um, so yeah, I hope this helps, right? Put your comments in the box if this has helped you in any way, and focus on your family, focus on getting your life in order, and focus on, hey, you know what? Today I'm not going to drink. Say the same thing tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm not going to drink, no matter how shitty I feel, right? Because Naomi's going to be there and she'll be like, man, I feel like shit, and I know what's going to help, right? And it does help because it masks everything. Right? It's masking it, and those things kind of do. And our entire society is about masking symptoms. Let's instead of like looking at the root cause and fixing it, let's mask the symptoms. And all alcohol is doing is masking everything, right? And we're like, I don't want to mask it anymore because I'm prolonging all the inevitable, which isn't even really that bad. I just think it is. And alcohol is going to lie to you and say, oh, you know what? It's real bad. That headache of yours. You can't just sit there and drink water like a normal fella. You got to have this.
Right.
Um, and it's going to lie to you and say that. So stop listening to the lies.
Exactly.
Go repair your family stuff. If you have someone in your family that's an alcoholic, you go do it, right? Let's see here. Jacob says, I like these videos. Thought it was about an hour earlier. Was just about out the door for a walk. Well, glad you're here, Jacob. We like having you. Naomi says the videos help a lot. Awesome. I do need to make more. I have kind of been slacking on that, but yeah, I need to make more of the short videos because I know a lot of people like those as well. And if you have a topic that you want me to cover, type that in the box as well. But I hope this really helps you understand. Hey, look, your family's not like harping on you if you're drinking too much. They just don't want you to drink too much. And don't play the moderation game. For those of you who are like, well, I think I could still moderate. Okay, go a year. If you can moderate, great. Give yourself a year. See how things go. If you still want to go down that road in a year, explore it when you get there.
Right.
You don't need to make a decision. Like, this isn't church where you need to decide the rest of your life to follow this path. No. I just want you to be sober. I want me to be sober, and decide today. Hey, I'm going to be sober today. That's good. Tomorrow, don't know what's going to happen. Could be a little electrode light, right? It could affect the way I think. And you look at that and you say, hey, that's the way it works. It's like when you hit your funny bone and you feel it somewhere else in your body, right? Same kind of thing. It's like these things are going to happen. So you control what you can control. And we'll end with the idea of the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. What can't you change? I can't change the fact that alcohol warps my mind. Even one drink will probably warp my mind enough to make me want more drinks.
Right.
Probably will, right? One's never been enough. Like 50 wasn't enough. So how the hell is one going to be? And so I got to accept that. And that's just the way it is. It's not bad. It's not good. It's the way it is. It's actually, I think it's kind of good, but I'm like one of them, the glass is always full kind of guys. Um, and accept that. And then, what was it? Yeah. Accept the things I can't change. What is it? My brain's not working today. Grant me the
Grant me the
serenity.
serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can.
Yes. And you can change your relationship with alcohol and your family. You can change that. You can change it by being a different you. So I hope this helps. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had fun. Terry, any last minute thoughts?
Absolutely. Alcoholism, well, for me, I found that I don't, as Marcus said before, for me, it's the same thing. Alcohol is not an issue in my life anymore. It's not a matter of that I need to stay away from it. It's just something I don't want anymore. And no matter where you're at, whether you've gone through, whether you've relapsed a bunch of times, this is your first time trying to quit, you're still drinking too much and you need to quit. You can stop drinking. Um, if you may not even realize that alcohol is causing problems in your life, and or maybe you do, and it can get better. And the first thing to do is just to make sobriety a top priority. Marcus has a really good video about alcohol and family. I don't know what it's called, Marcus, but over on Talk Sober. I don't have one on Everyday Sober, but we both have videos
Yeah.
on tips for staying sober, so you guys can check those out too. And thanks.
I'll put a link in the comment box when we're done,
Okay,
so if they want to check that out.
great.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
All right, guys. I hope you like this. Stay sober. Go to the doctor if you feel like you need to go to the doctor. If you're detoxing, go to the doctor anyway. And focus on you. Take this day and say, you know what? Today I don't need to drink. Don't have to. Don't need it. I'm good. And then do the same thing tomorrow and keep doing it. And I've been doing the same thing for almost 1,200 days now.
Right on.
I think so. Is that how many?
Something
Think
like
maybe
that.
more, like
I don't count
1,500
the
days.
days.
Yeah, there's a lot of days. I'm just adding up 4 years times 365. So it's something. You guys do the math. But you look at that and you say, I can do that. I never thought I could do it.
You know what you
Never
can
thought in a million years.
you can get a sobriety calculator on your telephone, and I've been sober for 1,361 days. There you go.
There you go. Cool. All right. So yeah, you know what? Just do what you got to do, and you don't have to drink today. Best thing in the world. Thanks again for watching. Go over to talksober.com. Check out the stuff we have. We are mixing some things up. We are starting a group. Where it's like a community and also some videos and things like that, and a software tool, which is designed to help you stay sober. So we're going to be coming out with that stuff. Keep your eyes out for it, and we'll see you on the inside. Thanks again. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks, Terry, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Marcus.